It's now my honor to introduce the ideal inaugural commencement speaker for this inaugural class. Tony Quin knows something about inaugurating a vision. 15 years ago, he took the bold leap to start a company, IQ Interactive, based in Atlanta with offices in New York. He was the adventuresome entrepreneur who combined strategic thinking with a team of skilled producers. Besides being the founder, he remains CEO of IQ Interactive, a digital agency at the intersection of advertising, television, and the web. I try to keep up. I follow IQ Interactive's blog, Facebook, Twitter. I was captivated by Tony's visual presentation on digital agencies in Moscow last fall during Russian Internet Week. He recently wrote that the digital agency business is changing so fast it makes his head spin. And that's why IQ works to reinvent itself on a continual basis, sort of like a school of communications and an iMedia graduate program must be forever reinventing ourselves in our fast-changing communications world. Today, IQ Interactive is a full-service agency that counts numerous Fortune 100 companies as clients. When I was in Tony's Atlanta headquarters a few months ago, his whiteboard listed project timelines for IBM, Barclays, UPS, Microsoft, and others. In fact, just last month, IQ won 6 Telly Awards for its client work, and B2B Magazine named it one of the top interactive agencies in the nation for 2010. Mr. Quin was born and educated in the United Kingdom. He graduated from college in London. Internationally, he is a founder of the Society of Digital Agencies. At Elon, he is a valued visionary as a member of our School of Communications Advisory Board. And tonight, he has come from Atlanta with his wife, Luann, and his son, Winston, who will be entering Elon this fall, to share some words of wisdom with our graduating students and guests. So, ladies and gentlemen, and the graduating class of this inaugural MA in Interactive Media program, please welcome our commencement speaker, Mr. Tony Quin.
Thank you, Paul. I wish all my clients could have heard that. I think I have to get the tape. I am very honored to be asked to speak to you, the graduates of the first Masters in Interactive Media program. Clearly, the reason I'm here today is because I'm the CEO of an interactive advertising agency. So let me first congratulate you on the wisdom of choosing a commencement speaker who might one day give you a job. By the way, if you laugh at any of my attempts at humor or applaud anything I have to say, this means your first interview is going really well. Seriously, interactive is a very cool business to get into, and unlike other parts of the media world, maybe the newspaper business, I can say safely it has a very good future. But it's an industry immersed in constant, unrelenting change. Just since you put on your cap this morning and zipped up that gown, something important has happened in the interactive world, and you need to know about it or you're going to get left behind. It's a frightening and yet thrilling thought. And that's really what I want to talk about today. Not simply how to survive in the changing digital world, because it wouldn't be any fun if you were just paddling as hard as you could trying not to drown. I want to talk about how to prosper and flourish in one of the most dynamic and I think exciting businesses I can imagine. The other day, I asked my daughter, who's a rising senior in high school, to have dinner with me, and she agreed, but only after I promised not to bore her to tears talking about how to be successful again. So I'm going to make the same promise to you and start with a quick story. In the 1930s, my grandfather, who was a carpenter in Louisville, Kentucky, got Parkinson's disease and couldn't work. Since there really wasn't much of a safety net in those days, my grandmother, Tessie, had to come up with a way to feed her family and take care of my grandfather. Life had thrown her a very large curve, and she needed an answer. Her answer was buses. Everybody used buses in those days, so she came up with the idea of making money by printing a free local bus schedule that you could put in your pocket. It worked. She printed lots and lots of bus schedules, sold ads in them, and things got much better for the family. As you might imagine, this gave her some confidence. So before long, she had another idea. If it works for buses, why not airplanes? Air travel was still in its infancy, but my grandmother was a visionary and saw what was coming. So, armed with nothing more than her charm and her bus schedules, she talked her way into starting the first in-flight magazine. It was called Airlanes. I grew up around that magazine. It ran for 35 years on 72 airlines, virtually every airline in the world, and every issue is now in the Smithsonian. While many would have been frozen by her extreme circumstances, my grandmother was looking over the hill in the distance and could see an opportunity that nobody else could see yet. With things changing as fast as they are in our business, you have to be figuring out what's over the hill, what that light might be on the horizon, because of course it could be a train, a new technology, a new consumer trend, or some other change that will disrupt your life, personal or professional. If you're one of the few that's looking, you'll not only figure out how to get out of the way in time, but perhaps also figure out how to jump on board. I remember the moment it dawned on me that the internet was going to change everything. Actually, my big insight was kind of obvious. I looked at a computer monitor and said to myself, it looks like a TV, so why doesn't it act like a TV? That's when I started to turn my traditional advertising agency into a digital advertising agency. Of course, the problem with seeing the future is knowing what to do with it. Just last week, I was looking at an application that one of our technical gurus had come up with as an experiment, an exploration, and the hair on my neck started to rise. I suddenly realized I could be looking at the next Twitter. But now what? What was I going to do with that insight? It's scary and exciting at the same time at moments like that, because you're faced with the same choice my grandmother was faced with. Do you do nothing? Because how on earth could you possibly make it work? Or do you go for it, with all the risk and craziness that that entails?